And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth, and it's great to have you guys here on this Wednesday, January 31st. We have a lot to talk about on the show today, but before I get into that, I just want to remind you guys, as always, to tip or donate and get your comments recognized, make sure to go to the following link. That is streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker on the bottom of the show segment down below. So with that being said, let's get into what we are going to talk about for today. So we're going to start off the show. We're going to talk about the Lions and the Texans both keeping their offensive coordinator. So I know I did talk about this with the Lions the last couple of days because it seemed like Ben Johnson was going to leave, but then it came out, of course, when I'm done recording, that the Lions are going to retain him. He's going to be back for the 2024 season, which is huge. And then you also have the Texans offensive coordinator, Bobby Slowick. He was another guy that was possibly going to maybe, leave and go take a head coaching job somewhere else. But he's back as well. So we'll get into that in a second. Then in the second part of the show, different topics for today. We'll talk about Lamar Jackson's comments after the playoff loss to the Chiefs. I'll give you my thoughts on that. In the third part of the show, we'll talk about the Dallas Cowboys, actually. Jerry Jones saying the Cowboys are all in for 2024. So we'll talk about what that means. And then in the final part of the show, we'll actually take a look back at Super Bowl 54 between the 49ers and the Chiefs. That was the last time they met in the Super Bowl, which is recent. It was right before the pandemic. So, we'll talk about that, how that game went. And, again, more thoughts as to what we should expect for this Super Bowl that'll be coming up next week. So again, still got some time to fill in the gaps from now until then. We're really gonna beat this game on the head, because that's the only game that's left. And of course it's the biggest game of the year. So we will get into that to conclude the show. So let's get right into the first topic, which is discussing the Texans and the Lions keeping their offensive coordinators. So obviously. Like I said, Ben Johnson, with the Lions, it looked like he was going to leave. And I heard on the telecast, Kevin Burkhardt even said he's the favorite to get the Commanders' job. But he informed the Commanders and the Seahawks that he was going to stay with the Lions next year. And then when it comes to Bobby Slowick, he was again somebody else that was considered for head coaching positions. The Seahawks and the Commanders obviously are the two remaining positions left that need to be filled. And so he reportedly agreed to a new deal with the Texans, and he's getting a pay raise to go along with that. He did impress multiple NFL clubs during his head coaching interview process. Was considered for both the Seahawks and the Commanders job. Also, the Texans, they retained their quarterbacks coach, Jared Johnson, as well. So Jared Johnson, he followed. They followed DeMeco Ryans from the 49ers to Houston, and they were key contributors to the Texans turning it around this year, because again, we didn't really expect the Texans to be in the playoffs, win the division. That was not expected from this team, but they took a major step forward, and they're a big reason for that. C.J. Stroud, of course, is going to be one of the top players when it comes to offensive rookie of the year. There's him, there's Puka Nacua, but C.J. Stroud, great rookie season, over 4,000 yards passing, 23 touchdowns to 5 interceptions in 15 games. He's going to be the franchise quarterback moving forward. The Texans averaged at 342.4 yards per game and 22.2 points per game. With that, and along with Ben Johnson, because then you look at Ben Johnson, again, was another guy that was considered for both positions. like I've been saying. But apparently, from what I was reading, um, his asking price spooked some teams. So, we'll see. I mean, he'll probably get another opportunity. Um, maybe, next year, after next year, maybe depending on what jobs are open, he might leave. But for now, he's coming back for the 2024 season. So the Lions, they finished fourth in the league in yards and fifth in scoring, and this was actually Ben Johnson's uh, actually in his first season as offensive coordinator, they finished in fourth in yards and fifth in scoring. They ranked third in the league in yards and fifth in scoring in his second season. Okay, yeah, that's what I have here. And obviously they've built a nice core there. With Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jared Goff. Of course, now in year three with the Lions. Drafting Jahmyr Gibbs, bringing in David Montgomery, Sam Laporta. Again, I've been saying what Jameson Williams can do. They have a nice core on offense, and they have a good offensive line. So, and really the important thing, the most important thing is, is that familiarity, and you want to you don't want to screw that up because we've seen when, continuity, that's what I meant to say. Because we've seen what happens when, teams lose their coordinators. I mean, look at what happened with the Eagles. I go back to, the Falcons the year after they lost the Super Bowl and they lost Kyle Shanahan to the 49ers. The offense wasn't as good. The continuity is very important. And I think more so for C.J. Stroud just because he's going into his second season now. You want to keep that. Obviously with Jared Goff, it's a little bit different because he's a veteran quarterback. So I think he'd be able to, and not to say that C.J. Stroud wouldn't be able to handle it. It's just, he's going into his second year. Jared Goff's been around for a while, so he's been in different systems. He's kind of used to that. He's adapted to that. With C.J. Stroud, you don't know how it would be, but I honestly, again, I think it'd be fine. But again, there's always that other side to it. So I think this is very important for both teams that they're running it back with their staffs for next year. Obviously, the Lions got a step further than the Texans. But again, you look at the Texans; they were, they were ahead of schedule. Because again, nobody really expected them to get to this point, and here they are. Or, not here they are, but you know what I mean. It's gonna, now going into next year, now the expectations are gonna be, higher, for both teams, because the Texans now, you won the division and you got to the second round of the playoffs. Yeah, the expectations are gonna be higher, and the Lions, they just made it to the NFC Championship game, so, now the pressure is gonna be on. Because, for the Texans, they were more so playing with house money. The Lions, a lot of people including myself, expected them to be a good team this year. Now, I didn't think they were going to make it all the way to the NFC Championship game, but now that's kind of the expectation is, you got to the NFC Championship game, you were up 24-7 to against the 49ers, and you blew it. But now, next year, it's gonna be up to you to finish the job and end up going to the Super Bowl. And I think, keeping Ben Johnson is huge, so, we'll see what happens. And again, I talked about Dan Campbell's press conference and what he had to say, and, he was saying how he's going to take his time with, Ben Johnson ended up leaving, and he doesn't have to worry about it. Ben Johnson's coming back. So, now we'll see what happens in 2024, how these teams are. I expect both teams to be good. The Texans, obviously both teams have some work to do. More so the Texans. But the Lions, they have to, like I said, I think they need another weapon on offense, another pass catcher. The defense definitely needs some work, particularly in the secondary. With the Texans, we talked about what they needed to do is, the front seven, they got a lot of guys that are going to be free agents. Again, they probably need weapons on offense too. the running game, I think, is something they need to address. Devin Singletary did a nice job, but they need somebody else there to go along with that. Because I mean, you thought it was going to be Dameon Pierce, but that just ended up not being the case, and he ended up just being a guy on special teams. So yeah, I mean, listen, both teams, like I said, expectations are going to be higher, and we'll see what they do here in the off season. But it's a step in the right direction, And like I said, biggest thing, continuity. I know I said familiarity, but I meant to say continuity. That's the word I was looking for. So let me know what you guys think about this. Obviously, again, I think it's good for both teams. Because I mean, I didn't really know much about Slowick, but obviously, Ben Johnson was somebody that's been talked about a lot the last couple of years now with the Lions, surging, and it was thought to believe that he was going to get a head coaching job, and now he's like I said, apparently his asking price might have been too high for some teams, but for the Lions, I think it's good for them because you're running it back. Now we just gotta wait and see how next year goes. I mean, we're already talking about next year. But yeah, I mean, listen, it'll be here before we know it. I mean, we're talking about the Super Bowl, for the next 2 weeks. Well, now week and a half. The off season's gonna go very fast. So, and then we'll be right back here again talking about this stuff. But yeah, I mean that's really all I have to say here. Again, good for both teams, and like I said, we'll see how it goes for next year. So when we come back from our first break of the show, we're then gonna dive into the other team that got eliminated on Championship Sunday. We'll revisit the Ravens because I did want to talk about Lamar Jackson. What he had to say after the Ravens' playoff loss to the Chiefs, and really just where the Ravens kind of go from here, because it was definitely a disappointing end to their season, and I just wanted to touch upon what Lamar Jackson had to say, and yeah, that'll be the second part of the show when we come back from our first break. So. Stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.